and play because it's all one.
That's really interesting, and I want to carry that over now. I've got a number of questions, but one of the things that I noticed in my visit to your facility last week when you were kind enough to have us out is that you seem to be very people-oriented and that there's just a very relaxed atmosphere at your facility. And I'm wondering, is that something that's a natural reflection of you and Carl, or is that something you intentionally try to create? And does that instill passion within the people that work in your company?
Well, I think from a business leader and entrepreneur, you can be different things. And many of you probably, in maybe your classes here in business or whatever, have taken like a Myers-Briggs test or what we call a discus in looking at your personality. And I am a high I, which means interpersonal. So I want to talk to people. I want to find out what they're thinking. And I gather my thinking and direction and from that interaction, whether it's from employees and customers or, somebody on the street. I want to understand what they think of a certain area, and so I'm always doing this, like talking and surveying, while other entrepreneurs can be. My husband, on the other hand, is very, I want to say, spreadsheet oriented. Everything with him is, looking at the details. He'll ask me something, what percentage of our company, our employees have been here for more than 6 years? And I'll go, well, I think it's probably about, 65%. And he'll go, oh, you don't know that, you're just making that up. And I go, well, I talk to them all the time. But he'll then go get the records and do a spreadsheet and add everything up, and I'm always quite close. And he goes, I don't know why I spent 3 hours doing this work when you already know it. Well, the reason why I know it is because I talk to people all the time. And so it's that type of, it's just different. But I think a management team has to have all those capabilities. It's typically one person can't do it alone. It takes a partnership, and it takes a team of people with different skills and different capability to run a business.
Absolutely, and it sounds like you both complement each other very well in that regard.
Actually, quite well.
That's a nice partnership, to say the least. Again, last week you mentioned something that I would like, particularly the young people in our audience, to hear tonight that I thought was very insightful. You mentioned about something, I'm not sure if I'm using the exact words that you used, but you mentioned something about scrimp and save and then invest. And I'm just wondering if you can maybe expand or explain that to our audience tonight.
Well, I think a lot of people ask me, where did you get the funding to start QAD? So how did you, who invested in you? And really, literally, no one invested in me, and no one invested in the company. It's been a company that started from scrimping and saving. And so let me just give you an idea from, most of you are college students and from where you sit. So I graduated from college actually in winter of 77. I thought, a very, very good job at the time, starting out at $15,000 a year. Which I looked at the calculation of that, given 77 compared to now, and that turns out to be about $52,000 a year, which actually in today's dollars, I mean, that's a great job getting out of college. And so, when my kids give me a bad time, you worked for $15,000 a year, Mom? And I go, yeah, but that's different. That's 77 compared now. So I was very happy, and I was learning a lot, and I was doing programming, real-time development programming. But that first year, I decided I needed to continue living like a student. So I'm going to continue living like a student and saving as much money as I can, because at the time I thought, I wanted to buy a condo, or I wanted to buy a house, and I wanted to start investing. So that first year I made $15,000, and I was able to save $5,000. Now that's not without a lot of, riding your bike, not driving a car, not getting a car, everything I could do to get by with spending as little as I could. And so I did that for 2 years. So in 2 years, I saved $10,000, and I bought a third of a house with 2 other friends. So we bought a real fixer-upper, just an amazing, ugly house with broken windows and, anything you can imagine, something that you wouldn't even want to live in if you're paying rent, but we lived there because we bought this house and we fixed it up. And so the funding for QAD basically came from fixing up 2, 3, 4 houses over a period of 3 years. And then I was able to get about $20,000 that I thought, well, that $20,000 will last me for 2 years starting my own company. And I think I was talking to my husband about this recently, thinking about actually this presentation, and we said, when was it? We were 35 or 34 before we didn't have roommates because we were scrimping the whole time. How do you start businesses? We were like 34, 35. I think when I finally got pregnant with our first child, we decided, okay, we need the rooms. We can't just continue having roommates. We're grown up now. It was well into our 40s before we had a new car. Never owned a new car. Never could make that decision to spend that kind of money. And so then I look at a lot of young people today, including I have children now, 21 and 22. I know some of you know them. And their friends, and they're, wanting to buy new cars, get their own apartments, don't want to live with anyone. And I try to say, hey, how are you ever going to get ahead? Because you need to save money, and now is almost the best time to think about investing in real estate in Santa Barbara. We're at the bottom of the market. We're probably going to stay there for a few years, but get together with 3 or 4 other people, leverage yourself into a house, fix it up, live like a student, and save your money. And because now's the time. Every dime that you save now is so much more important in your whole lifetime than waiting until you're 50 to start saving, And so there is just that possibility. And I got to say, neither Carl or I, my husband and I, came from families with any money, and we were able to do it. And everyone here has that capability.
That's very interesting. It kind of parallels to my next question. Oftentimes in a lot of the textbook and a lot of the literatures that is out there, it's suggested that entrepreneurs are certain types of people with certain types of qualities and certain types of skills. Do you buy into that argument, if you would? And are there specific skills or qualities that you believe you possess that allowed you to build what today is a very successful global company?
I think, there is a set of skills, and I think the most of it, the number one skill is perseverance, because there's going to be all kinds of downs. You're going to have a lot of rejection. You're going to try things that fail. You're going to, and being able to push through that and have a sense of worth. It's very hard when you're losing money, not making the sale, not being able to pay payroll, to feel good about yourself. So, how do you continue pushing through that and figuring out what to do? And so I think you have to have a strong sense of self-worth, but you have to be willing to put in the work to do it. And not necessarily being, whether I'm an interpersonal person or a, control freak or a process-oriented person, doesn't really matter as much as that ability to just keep steady on the road. I liked one of our old mentors, who's now dead now, Joe Nida, who was a lawyer in town, unfortunately died a couple years ago. But he said about Carl, my husband, he goes, if the radio and the TV starts blasting that the end of the world is coming, I'm going to just drive right down to your office because I know you'll look at that and go, okay, we'll deal with it.
That's a perfect response. So is the ability to take on risk an important quality or characteristic, and are you a risk taker?
I'm not a major risk taker. I think, you know, there's risk that makes sense and there's risk that doesn't make sense. Going to Vegas and putting your paycheck on roulette doesn't make sense. The odds are too bad. You know, the odds are just terrible.